Hi, and welcome to an exciting episode of the Highland Bullpen Baseball Podcast today, as we're joined by Melanie Newman and Xavier Scruggs of the MLB Bases Covered Live. Melanie is, of course, the play-by-play announcer of the Orioles, and Xavier is a former Major League Baseball first baseman. We're delighted to have them on there as they preview the show, which starts this Sunday, the Dodgers taking on the Mets. We talk all things baseball, bit of football, bit of Tartan Army. Get us in the mood for this new show, talking about fan culture, try and get baseball ramped up in the UK. Thanks for listening, and here's the chat.
Now it's been like trying to just immerse ourselves in the culture and be able to take all that back to our coverage of Bases Covered Live.
Yeah, it's a brilliant idea. So, yeah, fantastic to hear. So we're happy to help. We're obviously long-term football soccer fans. You'll know we've got our wee podcast, which we really started we started in COVID, actually. I think 6 years ago today was our first episode, bizarrely. Wow. But our idea was to try to make baseball interesting for other football fans. Sport, but a different sport. So that's where we are and what we've been trying to do. So, and the World Cup's obviously made it exciting for us as well.
The Tartan Army certainly delivered in Boston and Miami. I had a little jealousy that I didn't get to be there for that one.
Yeah, well, Richard was there, so he was able to join in, see some of the baseball and the football. The Scotland team did what the Scotland team does, but the fans did what they do as well. They're fairly special, fairly unique.
No, it was amazing. They stole the show.
It's been brilliant. And the new series, you're back up on Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday we get going again. Dodgers, Mets. We were just sitting here talking about how special it is for our fan base to be able to, in our audience, to be able to see what could be, one of the best teams to play this game for such a long period of time in the Dodgers, in the dynasty that they may be creating right now. But also, a Mets team which has a huge fan base that's going through their ups and downs. But also they have, one of the best players that the game has seen in Juan Soto. So many storylines coming up this Sunday, and I'm glad we get to break it down.
Yeah, that's cool. That's exciting, and I think, I think you wanted a chat, obviously, to find out a bit more about how we can maybe promote this. Or for football fans or for non-baseball fans. You guys obviously been into baseball all your life. Is that just something you grew up with?
Yeah, I mean, for me, where I lived in Atlanta at the time we're talking about dynasties. The Braves went to the playoffs every single year. They were the team of the 90s. And even my family who lived in Boston, they were Braves fans. They didn't follow the Red Sox. So we had youth parks that hosted baseball year round because the weather cooperates. And so it's almost a part of the cultural fabric at that point. And my father didn't necessarily watch it as much. He ended up coming back around to the sport on his own later, which was just awesome to see. Yeah. But he never discouraged the fact that I had attached to it and loved it so much. And so it was just kind of a natural, I don't think I've ever poked my head around what I would do. I've covered other sports, but this was always kind of the main goal for me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's as a player, just like, and I think what will be kind of what we've seen already is like people falling in love with specific athletes, right? Like when you think about football, when you think about cricket, we've had a lot of those conversations here. but like I fell in love with watching Tony Gwynn, an outfielder for the San Diego Padres, as I grew up in San Diego. And then it was natural love for the sport. And it was like, man, maybe I can do this and start playing it as a young buck, 9 years old, and falling in love with the actual athleticism of the sport. And I think that's what, we relate to in football and cricket is there's such a appreciation for the way guys move in the game and the plays that they're able to make. And I think that's, as a former player, I get to break those things down and show people why those things are special, and relate those to what Melanie's so good at is kind of telling the stories of these guys, the backgrounds, and what makes their personalities even that much more special.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's funny you should mention the 1990s Braves because there was an early attempt to get baseball popular in the UK, and it was a Channel 5 program in 1997 that started off, and the presenter, the British presenter Jonathan Gould, was a big Braves fan, and of course they were doing well. So I remember that being introduced to it. And was it Chipper Jones,
Yep.
Kenny Lofton, and his sidekick, who was a summarizer, he was uh, Todd Macklin, who was a Red Sox fan, and he was really knowledgeable about the sport. And he used to rib Jonathan Gould about his lack of knowledge for being a Brit. But over the series, you could tell he was learning and becoming more into baseball. Part of the problem is that we love it, but we didn't grow up playing the sport, so we don't have that insight, that almost instinctive knowledge of the game that you guys have got, and that's maybe something that you can build into your program to help us understand better.
I mean, that's our whole goal at the end of the day. And what we love is so unique about this broadcast is we're not sitting in a booth. It's not stiff. We're on a couch. And so that's what we want is we don't want to talk to you or at you. We want to talk with you about it. It's designed to feel like we're hanging out in your house together or down the street. It's very casual. And so we do keep enough information in there that fans who have now been watching for several years don't feel like it's too simple of a program for them. But at the same time, that's why Felix White is so brilliant as our British analyst, because if we do get a little technical, a little too far in the weeds with it, he can say, okay, stop, for those who don't understand, explain why this is important or what it is. And I just think it's this really beautiful blend of just a bunch of pals, talking about a sport together. And so it kind of lets you learn it without feeling like you're out there and exposed. It encourages you to learn it at the same pace with everybody else, and not feeling like you're too overwhelmed or that it's not enough information for you. It's too simple. We keep a really good sweet spot, I think.
The broadcast itself is unique, and even unique to the work that we've done previously, just because the engagement with the fans, like they can tweet in and be able to do those things to where it's like it calls our attention to what they're looking at or something that they want answered. So we get to figure out, okay, where is the audience, or like where should we be going with this audience? And it gives us feedback from every single second of the broadcast to kind of know, okay, what should we be talking more of, or what does the broadcast or what does the audience already have an idea of, so that we can kind of stay away from maybe.
I think that's a really good point, because I think that's the thing that fascinates me. When we set this up, we obviously thought we'd appeal to people with no knowledge. But as you go on, you build knowledge. People have knowledge, and then this year, actually, because we did a couple of World Cup episodes, we thought we would also do a few episodes trying to explain some of the phrases of baseball. So you're watching you guys on TV, and you're saying it's a 3-0 count, and it's like, well, that's a foreign language to British people. But for you guys, it's just a normal thing to say. But we actually found when we were doing it, we thought this would be one episode. I think we're on to like 4 episodes now, but even that's now just become that almost, I don't know if a mishmash is the right phrase, but it just becomes so much. It's where'd you stop? Where'd you go with all that? And who's your target audience here? Do you want, because nerds like us who are watching baseball in the UK, we've got MLB TV. So you've got guys, TNT Sport, BBC. You are you aiming for? You're aiming for two markets. Are you aiming for the guys who know what they're watching, or are you aiming for guys who've never watched a game before?
Yeah, I think to go back to the unique style of this broadcast, it really is designed to be both. So to grow with people who haven't been around the game before, and again, just a comfortable place for them to understand and to learn. And then at the same time, those who have already been with us from the beginning and want to keep watching, and hopefully we're just, you want people to identify with broadcasters and say, oh, I love tuning in because I love these presenters. And their personalities and the way they do things. And so that's, again, where we have started to evolve it to be not as simplistic. So that way that does allow for them to move forward with us and not go, okay, it's time for me to graduate to watch this under a different format, a different broadcast. We really are trying to do something that most game presenters don't do, which is to capture both ends of what is a relatively new sport for what we know a lot of our audience to be.
Yeah. And I think that's what's cool about the way our setup is too, is it's inviting to all audiences, I feel like. And if we can even capture the young kid that may be thinking about getting into baseball or wondering what baseball is, I think that's another aspect of it too, because it allows almost one generation to kind of pass it to the next. Somebody teaching, hey, what is this? What is this I can get involved in? How do I get involved in it? That's where I see it continuing to grow too, because if we can hit that younger audience in a relaxed fashion to where it's not your typical broadcast, we chilling, having a coffee, enjoying conversation. That's where I think we can hit the younger fan base.
And to the point of the minutia of it, you're just not going to find another broadcast where we have the technology, something crazy, especially physical, happens in the moment of the game. X who played is going to get up and do a full physical breakdown of, let me show you what just happened and why that's amazing or difficult or whatever it is. You do not have that freedom in any other format.
Absolutely. I really like that kind of community approach you guys are taking to it as well, and especially with the kind of generations to come. I was just thinking back there, you'd mentioned the Braves in the 90s. So as a teenager, I got into baseball by listening on the radio. Of all things, there was a network called Armed Forces Radio and Television Network. I can remember it in Europe in the 90s for all the US bases. And I remember listening and just flicking through the radio channels and just hearing this noise. And I think it was a big game. It was definitely the Braves. I think Tom Glavine was pitching, I'm sure. And just hearing that, you could barely hear it because we were quite far away from the reception. Something about it grabbed me. So what's going to grab you? How do you grab the teenagers today to make them baseball fans for life and stuff as well? And I think that's so exciting about what you guys are doing.
I think, and you guys have probably seen it too, and Major League Baseball and MLB Europe does such a good job of this now, is the social aspect of things, right? Like taking whatever conversation we have during the broadcast, how can we make it bite-sized for the younger generation too? How can we give it to them in 30 seconds? Because we know they have an attention span of a goldfish. So it's fun to be able to be creative with the broadcast and create other platforms to where people can soak in what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think like X has touched on these dynasty teams and these amazing players, like what Shohei Ohtani is doing right now. And so it's this really good combination where he's going to be able to point out guys who are worth to follow because of their talent and that athleticism. And then we bring in a balance because Felix is just this amazingly lyrical analyst in the way that he can talk about individual plays that he falls in love with, or little pieces. He loves the curveball. And then I come in as that third member, and my tie has always been emotional connections, human interest stories, that vulnerability that every single one of us has when we tend to put athletes on this pedestal that, they have just done this. They're untouchable. They've always had a perfect life. Everything is easy. And we break that down into, you might have more on a human level in common with him than you thought, and why you want to stay around and be a fan and root for their overall success. So it's just this really good blend of, I think, attracting really any age level, depending on how you're wired, to want to watch the game more.
Absolutely. And it's about those moments as well, isn't it? So Alan mentioned I was lucky enough to get over to the World Cup and I got to 5 different baseball games when it was over there in 5 different cities. So 4th of July, obviously amazing, America's 250. I got to see Randy Rosarena hit a grand slam on the
Oh my
4th of
gosh.
July when they beat the Blue Jays out of the park. So yeah, and that's a moment to live with me. My son's 15, fell in love with that. That was his moment. We're over there seeing family in Seattle and stuff like that. And we also went to the Tacoma Rainiers as well, the
Yeah.
AAA team. And that was so cool. And I'd love to know more about what does that step look like between AAA when you're doing that there and then that step up to the majors. What a moment that must be hard. And I know it goes back and forward a bit with baseball, but it's, yeah, fantastic to hear about that kind of stuff.
That's a perspective that we both have a lot of familiarity with, just because as a player, you almost want to stay away from the minor leagues, right? You're trying to go from single A, double A, triple A to the big leagues, but it's where you grow up and become a man. It's where you learn so much about yourself and go through failure. And I think that's something everybody can relate to, right? Is like going through failure makes you stronger as a player, but also as a person. And then your life completely changes once you get the opportunity to go to the show. And then how do I from a psychology standpoint, like how do I stay in the show mentally? What do I need to do to make sure I'm on point with my game every day to where I'm not sent back down? So I think you hit on a great point, Richard, just the idea of that battle between the minor leagues and the big leagues and trying to stay there.
And I think from my end, I was in the minor leagues for 7 years, and it's like he said, you grow up, but you also, I think life kind of asks you, like, are you sure that this is where you want to be? Like, do you want this? Because it's not glamorous, and for us to try to emphasize just the distance, because obviously travel through Europe versus the United States is so different. The lower minor leagues, everywhere that you're going is on a bus, a charter bus, basically. And so you picture an entire team, the staff, the broadcasters. You finish a game at 12 a.m. and you could be on a bus for 12 hours and you're not and you're in the same state. You're not even going across the country. You are in one state. You wake up in the same state and then you have to play again. You're getting in the hotel at 9 or 10 a.m. and there's a game at 7, which means you're at the field at 3. And so you go through that grind, and as much as it kind of chews you up and there's really not money to be had, they've made it a much easier format now and a much more profitable format now, which is amazing. But the era that we were was not. And so when you do finally get that chance to go to the big leagues and you're on planes and there are support staff around you and there's good food, it's not McDonald's every day. You appreciate looking back everything that you did. And I think especially the intimacy of the minor leagues, because there's so much more quiet and there's an ability to really, really seep into a community if you so choose to. And so there is nostalgia and fondness looking back on it. But it's definitely a testing grounds to get to that next step.
Yeah. I'd be interested in we've touched on the World Cup as well. Is there anything you're thinking about doing differently in the next few broadcasts, or anything new you're introducing because you've seen the reaction, the England fans at the Braves with Michael Harris second, was it? And the love they were giving him, and then the Tartan Army in Miami and Fenway.
It'd be impossible not to talk about those things. And I think a lot of it because of where our game is at internationally right now, too. Having gone through the World Baseball Classic and then seeing, the World Cup and just the momentum it's built into baseball. And I think highlighting those things only help our game. I think one of my biggest takeaways was just you don't typically see fan interaction with the players like that, like what we saw with Michael Harris II.
Yeah.
And it reminds you that the fan base interjects an energy to players that they cannot stray away from and that they can use. And that is cool to see that connectivity. And just what we saw with the England, the Tartan Army, the fans in general, it reminds you here, like how much more we could celebrate and commit to our teams.
Yeah. I mean, fan culture is quite different, and I have to say, I think one of the things we love about watching baseball is how it is so different from football. We're football fans. We love all that. But I've watched the Tigers, I think, in 4 or 5 different ballparks now.
Wow.
And it's that excitement of going to a new ballpark, but you're actually sat beside Blue Jays fans, you're sat beside Red Sox fans. You're speaking to different people. That's just an experience that we don't have at all. And that's an important thing to really get across to people about how much fun you can actually have doing that. The chanting and the singing, obviously, our fans, they're used to being sat together. They're used to traveling together on buses, on trains, and what have you to get to games. So it does create something a wee bit different. But you've got, how would you sell? We did an episode before the World Cup for Scotland fans going to Fenway. We didn't quite expect it to blow up and be as fantastic as it was. But the idea was to sort of say to people, come and watch. When you go to a baseball, here's A, B, and C, what you should go and do. The second comment we got when we put it in social media was, don't go, it's boring as anything. Which justifies us doing the podcast. They didn't even read, they didn't even listen to the podcast.
Right.
How would you sell the experience of going to a game to a soccer fan who's never been before?
I think it's like life. You're going to get out of any sport what you put into it. So I think if you're going and only expecting the joy to come from every single play that happens, it will probably feel longer. And if you're going excited to see these different people who will probably be around you, like you said, it's not traveling together and sitting together like you would normally see. Exciting to try new food. We have our resident professional here in that department, and he's been in the game that long and he still gets excited about it. So like, I think that's like case A. He should probably be desensitized by now, but they just continue to elevate the experience. And so when you're willing to make it a full scope and not going moment to moment, then when the big moments happen on the field, and because you're immersed in the crowd that you're around and your food and drink and just, beautiful weather and amazing ballparks, these cathedrals, whether they're new or historic, you're going to have a lot of fun with it.
I would also say the strategicness of a game like soccer or football and the little passes, remind me of the pitches, right? Like everybody's trying to figure out how to get to a scoring position. Every little hit, whether it be a base hit to the right side and at bat, maybe a bunt, you're trying to figure out how am I going to get to the big swing? And I think those intelligent fans that appreciate the strategicness of the game and the almost waiting out your opponent and trying to go punch for punch and figure out ultimately how you're going to get to the goal, that's where I would relate that aspect of it is, those fans that appreciate the step by step by step, and then boom, those are the ones that are going to like, hey, baseball's for me.
Yeah, the strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, spot on. Dave.
Yeah, sorry, could I just say something? I'm so impressed that you went to Lord's, by the way. And
that was amazing.
Yeah, I've not been for many years. It's that long ago. I don't think those relatively new stands were actually up. It was like an open end, but
Wow.
Well, one of the things occasionally we do on the Highland Bullpen is they bring in me and we try and make a connection between cricket and baseball. And one general thing I think I found this out when I went to Fenway a few times, is that there was a very similar vibe about football is very tribal, and the fans are crazy, mad, passionate. And that's not to say they're not that element in baseball, but I think in cricket and baseball, there's a love of the game for itself, for its own qualities, if you know what I mean. So a fan goes to Fenway to see Shohei Ohtani play well. Yes, you want your team to win, but you want to see good baseball, and that's the same in cricket. And I think that's what I genuinely love about baseball, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the essence of what you want from any sport, right? Is you don't want to have your team hoist the trophy at the end of the year and go, well, everybody else didn't really step up. You want to see the best of the best going head to head. I mean, that's that raw human element at the end of the day, is knowing that you can say you're the best because you've seen the best and you've taken care of that, not because it was, handed to you.
Right. And you know what I experienced at Lord's was this idea that, the game can be soaked in over a long period of time, right? Like I didn't realize how long, a cricket match could ultimately be, but it made me appreciative of the smaller moments. And you get more excited about somebody catching the ball and that's a wicket. And I'm like, hey, they out of the game. So it's interesting to see when a game can have those slower elements to it. You almost sit back and say, "Oh, I appreciate somebody hitting it out of the boundary now more." And those moments that happen, I think the same can be said for baseball.
Cricket's a game that can go on for 5 days and still be a tie at the end of
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
Maybe the pitch clock wouldn't quite help with that, I don't think. But one
But
thing
what was cool too is what we experienced, where I feel like most people probably didn't, is we saw it from a lot of different perspectives too, walking around
yeah,
the pitch or walking around the whole stadium. So I think that helped us kind of see different people's perspective and their points of view too.
absolutely. One thing I wondered about, because we all grew up playing football, soccer, so you can watch top players, and you can never do that, but you kind of know how it feels to hit a ball from 30 yards into the top corner. Doesn't happen very often for mortals, but for the top guys, it does. I would love to know what it feels like to be standing under a towering fly ball, to feel a 95 miles per hour fastball swing by your ears. And that's the bit I think I miss out on, because you guys, little league, minors, majors, just how the feel for the game we can learn. We can learn lots about it, but we'll never really learn how that feels, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a different adrenaline, and a different feeling when you have 40,000 fans like expecting you to do something, but you've got to focus and almost have a tunnel vision on a fastball that's coming 100 miles an hour with some late movement, and you've got to figure out, how am I going to get this bat to match this ball at the perfect time? It's almost like you're in a dream, honestly. You think about a dream, everything else is out of the picture, but it's your focus is so like minute on the moment. And very rarely in life do we have that, right? Like to where you're so focused on one
Like,
thing.
peripheral.
Yes, and I think it's magical. I think Felix would say it's a magical type of moment,
Magical.
right? And I think getting to be able to describe those moments on the broadcast or something that I talked about hitting a home run, just almost your bat is going through a cloud, right? It makes 100-mile-an-hour fastball seem like you barely touched a pillow. And those moments are kind of what we get to talk about naturally on the broadcast.
I must say, for all the grounds I went to, the fans were so welcoming, and all of them, and every
Yeah.
Scotland fan, the thousands, and at Fenway, many others like myself went to Miami as well when we were down there and stuff like that as well. We were so impressed at how welcoming the baseball fans were everywhere we went.
Well, and that starts with the aura that you presented as a fan base, just coming from that third party that kind of saw it from the outside. When fans see these joyful, over the top, but also like respectful and wanting to thrive in camaraderie, that immediately, before you can even get there, that opens their arms. It's like seeing the most happy house guest coming down your drive. You want the door open, you want them in, because you want all of that good energy for yourself. And so credit to the fan bases that traveled, because every single one of them had these wonderful reputations that preceded them. And if anything, it was everybody wanted to be a part of it. Everybody said, well, how do we get them here? We're not hosting a World Cup game, but now we want to be a part of this amazing fan base.
Well, we have an idea. So, like at MLB London series, we've also had a few games that we've talked about the Red Sox and the love of the Tartan Army, the Atlanta Braves with Michael Harris and the England fans. So, what about getting a Braves Red Sox game over in London? You could imagine.
I'm about it.
Yeah, that would be an ideal one. You'd love to commentate on that.
And listen, those are the two halves of my childhood. So
Yeah.
We'll sign off on it now. We have no authority or power in anything, but we'll take that matchup every day.
100%. We were just talking about how to get, more series even within a year in London. Like that would be amazing. I mean, they said Bryce Harper kind of talked about that a couple of years back. So hopefully we get to that point here as we continue to build momentum in our game.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, I mean, I know it's interleague and what have you, but that's like an ideal one. The Patriots, and talking of football, they're playing in Germany this autumn. Now they're playing the Lions, so I've got no interest in the Patriots if they're going to play the Lions. But they've actually, I can't remember the name of the owner of the Patriots, but they've held tickets over for the Tartan Army to go to Germany to cheer them on as well. So
Wow.
it's fantastic, and that's sport transcending disciplines really there, isn't it, as well? And that's part of what you're bringing to our screens then as well.
Yeah, I think so, 100%. It's just again, if you appreciate sports for what they do for a community, I think any sport that's willing to put itself out there to bring in a new audience you're still going to find those little touch points of similarity, enough for you to latch onto, whatever it is, even if it's not with anything to do on the field itself. It's easy to grow into a new one. It's the same thing. We didn't know much about cricket. And then leading into it and watching some tests and starting to learn a little bit, and then actually being in the grounds, there's what's not to enjoy about it.
It reminds us too, I think it challenges us as broadcasters too, to find those connections. I was over in Scotland earlier in the year and had some haggis every day. So now I figure out if I'm talking to the Tartan Army who is loving the Red Sox or something, hey, I know where those connection points may be. So there's certain things where it reminds us that we can be more broad in our conversation with certain things.
There's a big opportunity there now because if you walk around Scotland now, if you walk around Glasgow, you will see a lot of Red Sox colours. So people have taken caps back, they've got shirts back. I know Dave's our resident Red Sox fan, so he'll be delighted. But that's just something we can really build on.
Yes.
Well, as a baseball community, and for us supporting other teams, that's great as well because people are coming to the game.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
No, it's so exciting. I think whoever of the 30 that you choose to root for.
Yeah. And we were looking at, kind of the hats back here and how, certain cities like represent things. Maybe fans are not even fans of baseball, but, from a culture perspective, people rocking the hats all the time. So how can we connect what those certain cities mean to those people that are already wearing some of the merchandise and don't really know?
Yeah, I mean, we planned to do a wee episode around that as well. I mean, we did one in the early days trying to associate Scottish football teams with different teams, but I think like St. Louis Cardinals, you're French. Detroit is a French name as well. So you've got all sorts of connections you can then pull in to different cities as well. So I think there's a lot of mileage in that, and that's how do you get somebody to support a team? Find a connection.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what we were talking about earlier, just blending the different pieces of athleticism and personality so that everybody, no matter how you're wired, whether it is logical and wanting to see great plays or it is emotional and just wanting to feel identifiable within somebody else, there's just a limitless opportunity.
Yeah. Fantastic. You get any other questions, guys, you wanted to?
I guess I had a brief one. So we're talking about trying to do another trip and trying to go somewhere where we can maybe get to 2 or 3 different baseball stadiums that are relatively close together. And I guess we're maybe thinking upper Midwest or something like that. But I don't know if you guys had any suggestions for somewhere we could go and maybe take in 2 or 3 games within a relatively travelable distance by American standards.
Yeah, so there would be 2 pockets that I would start with there, and one would definitely be Midwest because you can do Cardinals, Cubs, and White Sox relatively easily. Obviously, the Cubs and the White Sox share the same city. And then on the East Coast, you can do Baltimore, and then the Washington Nationals are about half an hour south. And then about an hour and a half north is the Phillies. So I think those are 2 little pockets where 3 teams are very easy. I think the rest would be a little tough, but those are probably your softest landing spots.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for that.
Like the second one, yeah. Dave?
Yeah, no, that sounds like great advice. And going back to what I was saying about the late 90s, I said just as I was getting interested in the sport, it sounded like they were going through a phase of knocking down, tearing down the old stadiums. And I talked my wife into going on a trip in 1999, and we actually went to Chicago, saw both the stadiums, and then took a one-day trip into Detroit to go to the old Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
But we did fly in and fly out. We nearly missed our plane because it was on a rain delay. And
Oh no.
we stayed to the end, and fortunately we found a friendly taxi driver who took us back. But that to go to Tiger Stadium was one of the best sporting experiences I've ever had. And you've still got Fenway, you've still got Wrigley, and some other stadiums as well. I think the Dodgers is quite an impressive stadium to visit. So yeah, thanks for your tips on that. Hopefully we'll get something together next year or the year after.
Yeah, and when you do, listen, we've got all the places for you to stop in and out of the ballpark. I think we've got that pretty worked out. So
Brilliant.
Nice one.
Conscious of your timing, guys, you got a busy day, so we really appreciate the chance to have a.
no, we
thanks,
appreciate it. Thank you guys for waiting. It's been awesome to chat with you all.
Yeah.
Will you be tuning into the game? I see you do the play-by-play for the Orioles. Are they not playing a double header today in Fenway?
They are. And talking about just my personal history, we don't talk about the fact that I grew up a Boston fan around the Orioles.
All right.
Keep that quiet. But I'm very curious to see if they get that franchise record 15th consecutive win today. That's what's so beautiful. They have not been a good team this year, but they could do something some of their greatest teams have never done.
Yeah.
So I'm not rooting against Baltimore. I'm just waiting to see a game.
Understood.
Yeah, a 1-1 split would be quite good, so Boston gets the first one and then the O's get the second.
There you go. We'll take that. That's a good settle.
Brilliant.
Thank
All
you
the
guys.
best. All the best for the new series, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Can't
you
wait.
guys.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'll follow up with you after as well.
Brilliant. Thank you,
Brilliant.
Lydia.
Thanks
Bye,
for
folks.
everything. That
Thank
was
you, guys.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.